really appreciate you starting there. I mean, we have a plan. We're going to talk about, the decision that Jeff Bezos made to control what the opinion section of the Washington Post is going to include, and what's been the repercussions of that already in terms of staff and in terms of the attack on freedom of press, really, and then also kind of looking back at the last days and the continuing story around the ban of the AP and the effect that's having, the chilling effect it's having on the ultimately the White House press corps. But I want to just sort of say to everybody who's listening that we included the title, and I'll read it again: "Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost." That whole quote is from Thomas Jefferson in 1786, and he understood it well over 200 years ago. In our earliest days, he understood how fundamental the press was to a democratic society. I mean, he also said that if he had to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate to prefer the latter.
Hmm.
I mean, this is somebody who understood how fundamental this is, and it's not a surprise, Mark, that we're in this moment where Donald Trump and his regime has taken the tack of aggressive constraints on limitations of denial of the press to be making its own decisions and its
Right.
own judgments.
Well, Stephen, I think and this is partly the press's fault. The news industry has failed to make it clear to the public that when the government tries to limit the press or lie to the press, it's lying to the public and the people. It's lying to the people. I mean, that the press, there's a reason for the First Amendment and for the special place that journalism has in American society. And that's because the press represents the public's need to know things, and
Yeah.
so when the press is getting battered, it's the public getting battered, and I think the news media industry needs to make that clearer than it has so far.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, again, we're back to sort of first principles. The press is there as a representative of the people. We're there to ask questions to those who are in power with the specific responsibility to find out what they're doing on behalf of the public. That couldn't be more fundamental. And I mean, I think I want to linger for a minute on what happened in those last days. The Associated Press reporter was banned from the White House, the Oval Office, and maybe other parts of the White House, specifically because the Associated Press refused to make the name change from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. And at first it almost seemed like a stupid contretemps, no big deal, and it's evolved into something because it represents the belief of this White House that they can coerce the media into saying what they want to say it the way they want it to be said, use the words whether it's true or not. And this is again, we're really in this realm of fundamental principles, and I'm uh, I'm disappointed that right from the beginning that we didn't have a press corps that stood together and said, well, if you're doing that to the AP, then we're all going to stop this. They didn't do that. What do you think about that?
Stephen, I wrote that it was an opportunity for the press to have an "I am Spartacus" moment, but instead they had a moment of "I'm not Spartacus, not at all. He's over there." I mean, it was the news media failing to show solidarity at an important moment. I mean, other than stern private letters and stuff like that. I mean, come on. And and last Thursday, when they had a press conference, a White House briefing, not a single question got asked about the AP ban, which is, I mean, when that should have been the first question. It should have been the second question and the third question too. And I mean, but the news media, when they cede power like that, they're going to be taken advantage of, and it becomes kind of every man for himself. It becomes the, well, I didn't raise anything, and they didn't go after me, so I'm just hoping to keep my head down. And
Right.
that's no way. There's no way for a press to be in a democracy. The press needs to be aggressive, and it needs to push back against outrages like that. You know,
Yeah.
and then you get the what they did more recently with the they're going to decide who's in the press pool. They're
Right.
going to just, which means that in effect means when the president travels or when he's just in the White House, that who is there to cover what he's doing, they're going to decide.
Right.
And so, you know in the
Let me,
past, the
if I can, let me just read. I made a point of sort of pulling the quote from, this so-called press secretary, Caroline Levitt. For decades, a group of DC based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. That may have been the plan all along, but I think the failure of the press pool to stand by the AP reporter, and the AP, told them already that they were not going to get a lot of pushback. Well, there has been some, but here we are. I mean, this is a first in this pressure right now to control what the media, not only what the media writes, but what it is that they know.
Right. When I was an editor at the Chicago Tribune, I would read the White House pool reports all the time, and
Yeah.
they would, when they were traveling, you'd have a pool reporter. They'd be assigned, and they would say, the president did this at this time and talked to this person, waved at the crowd. It would give a lot of details of what the president was doing, and all news media could trust that that was the case, and they could incorporate those in their reports. Well, I mean, if the White House is going to invite people like the Gateway pundit, to like Pizzagate kind of people into the, to pretend to be reporters,
Right.
then nobody's going to be able to trust anything
Right.
anymore. And
Right. And look, I mean, I just want to say also, I mean, this is also in the context of the decision that all these press people who are in the White House. I mean, I want to linger on them. When it was Joe Biden in the White House, they didn't hesitate, aggressively asking him questions. And now with Trump, they seem very intimidated, very cowed by him. The report has been that there's been over 1,000 questions that Donald Trump has answered in the last since he got into office a month ago. But the truth is, he's answered every question with a lie. So it really does raise questions about access journalism and this belief that they just have to go along with whatever the White House does if they want to survive and have this ability to quote unquote ask a question.
yeah, Stephen, but journalism should not look like feeding time at the aquarium.
Hmm.
And when you have reporters just kind of getting whatever whatever the White House decides to give them, then it's a really bad look. And
Right.
and and I've written recently that maybe this is an opportunity for news media to break the addiction to access, to
Right.
just decide, well, this is because honestly, they're letting more and more clownish faux reporters into these briefings. And do you really want to be in that same clown car? Maybe not. So it may be a time to
What
just
does
get
that
out
look
of that
like?
business.
What does that breaking with addiction look like?
Well, it means, as Jay Rosen, the NYU journalism professor, really smart guy, said, just send an intern. Just send somebody to write down what they're saying,
Yeah.
but don't turn that into the main show. Go out and report on stuff. Go, if you. So it's the real, I think, real problem with political journalism these days, and for the last few decades, is that it's been so much based on press conferences that occur in the White House and
Yeah.
in the Capitol, and it's which is this stage show by the politicians. And they need to just get the heck out of Washington. Go interview somebody who's rationing their medicine because they're poor and they can't afford the adequate doses. Go talk to college professors who have been studying the issues for decades. You
Yeah.
know, do 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 things that show the effects of what's happening in Washington instead of just showing the show of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, there was a very good example of that failure yesterday, which was the the press corps was there when there was this so-called cabinet meeting that was led by Elon Musk, and there were
Mhm.
some questions to Trump, one of the questions was, "Are you going to touch Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid?" Trump says, "Oh no, we're not going to touch that at all," and there was no follow-up
Right,
question to
right.
that. And this is a day after the House released its budget that involved cutting $880 billion from Medicaid, which obviously has been appeasing what Trump wants. So, I mean, the access to ask a question doesn't mean very much if all you're going to get is lies.
I keep on waiting for some reporter to say that's not true. Because you
Mhm.
just to blurt out, no, that's not the case. And I guess their bosses might fire him or something. Who knows? But it would
Well,
certainly
we,
be
we had to count. We had to count on. I'm sorry. We had to count on. Emmanuel Macron fact checking Trump
right.
when he was lying about the investments of the Europeans on behalf of Ukraine. I mean, we have to rely on other people who are in power to push back on Trump right now. It seems like with too much of the legacy media.
And I feel like they've just given up on this. I was watching the broadcast. MSNBC played part of that cabinet meeting, and you had Trump just, as you say, lying just over and over, and Musk
Yeah.
lying, just lies, lies, lies. And I'm looking at the screen, and there's nothing on the screen that's indicating these are lies. And they could do that. They could do like
Right.
a pop-up window that would say, "Fact check, this is not true," or they could tape the damn thing, put fact checks in, and play it on a delay. They don't have to. There's not that much charm in taking it live if all that means is that you're just allowing them to lie without being challenged. I
Yeah.
mean, and Stephen, it's been a decade. It's been a decade of unrelenting lies by Donald Trump, and the news media have learned almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's really disheartening.
Look, I mean, you and I have chosen to participate in independent media, like,
Right,
the newsletters that we do on Substack. And the reason more than anything is that if you need to say that it's a lie, you say it's a lie. If you
right.
need to say, this is fascist behavior, you say it. We haven't been told by some corporate overlord that we're not allowed to say things directly. I mean, how many years it took the New York Times and the Washington Post to get beyond, he claimed, or it was a possible falsehood, or
Or
some other way to soft pedal. And the longer that soft pedaling went on, the longer that it created the conditions for Donald Trump to degrade the public's capacity to know what was true and what was false. And
yeah,
we're still paying the consequences of that, I think. And look, I think the other story that we want to pick up on is this awful misfortune of the billionaire Jeff Bezos, who yesterday announced, and he seemed to be extremely proud of the fact, announcing it and posting on Twitter what he's doing. And I'll read a couple of sentences from it. "We are going to be writing every day in support and defense of two pillars: personal liberties and free markets. We'll cover other topics too, of course, but viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others." And look, that's set up, and then he had more to say, but it led, first of all, David Shipley, who was the opinions editor, quit, and it's obviously led to quite a number of other people to push back. People who have worked for the Washington Post. In fact, Marty Barron, who was
right.
the former editor. I mean, I'll read a couple of sentences from him. Bezos himself has done personal liberties a disservice by cravenly yielding to a president who shows no respect for liberty, one who aims to use the power of government to bully, threaten, punish, and crush anyone who is not in his camp, especially the press.
Yeah, and it's shocking, really, that he would just kind of put he put his thumb on the scale. It's also it's it's using words in really sneaky and bad ways like this, I'm for personal liberties
Yeah,
and free markets. Now what does free markets mean? Does that mean that is that for or against letting Elon Musk get federal contracts
right,
because he kills his own investigations and goes after his competitors? Is Does personal liberties mean that in a pandemic you don't have to, that you can do whatever you want. You can,
right,
not get vaccinated and you can go to school and spread it throughout the school. I mean, what is, I mean, he's using those kind of buzzwords that
right.
sound good, but the people at the Washington Post are smart enough. They know what that is. That opinion editor Shipley, he knew it, and that's why he's getting out. And the Washington Post's best reporters have already left, or many of
Yeah,
them have.
yeah,
And because they saw the writing on the wall, they're not stupid. They know what's going on, and what's going on is that Jeff Bezos is going to do anything he can do to protect his other
right.
businesses by using the Washington Post, by disarming the Washington Post as a threat to Trump's lies.
Right. Look. Let's be clear. And Bezos is not alone. We have a lot of billionaires who have media interests, and and many of them obviously were donating to Trump's inauguration, and step by step have kowtowed to Trump and his demands and his desires. And I think about the fact that Bezos. I mean, how many government contracts he has with his Blue Origin space company? Amazon, its net sales in the last year were $680 billion. The Washington Post, which he purchased in 2013 for $250 million. He said at the time that he was committed to its independence and its journalistic integrity. Well, now the rubber meets the road, and he's ready to forsake that because he has government contracts and he has other business interests that are more important. And this is the thing. We're looking at Disney that owns ABC News, it's kowtowing to Trump. You have Paramount that owns CBS. Comcast owns NBC. Warner Brothers, Discovery owns CNN. We're dealing with this problem of corporate media where you have owners who are not committed to journalism.
Well, and Stephen, it's not that these corporations are not irrational in thinking that Trump's going to come after them, because he's made it clear he's going to come after them. The
Yeah,
FCC chairman now, Brendan Carr, who was one of the authors of Project 2025, has made it clear that he's going to go after media corporations who don't kowtow to Trump. I
yeah,
mean, this is not, and this is not an opinion on my part. You can just Google Brendan Carr, and you'll see all the horrible stuff he's doing to harass networks. And
yeah,
and the parent company of CBS has got a merger deal that's hanging out there,
right.
and so they are worried that the FCC under Trump will scotch the deal, and therefore they've been talking about settling this stupid lawsuit in which Trump has sued CBS for how they edited the Kamala Harris
Right.
interview, as if a media company can't decide how to edit its own product. I mean, it's a ridiculous lawsuit that this would not pass muster, and I don't think that the Trump people think that it could succeed, even though they put some judges in. I don't think that they think it could succeed. What they want to do is create this government threat that forces corporations to kowtow and to settle. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like a protection racket. It's
yeah,
And frankly, Stephen, looking at the Trump administration as a mafia type organization really kind of clarifies things, that they are therefore throwing their power around, therefore intimidating people so that they don't confront them. I mean,
yeah. I
it
mean, if we're going to talk about the gangster state, can we, and the mafia control? I guess this is an aside in this conversation, but can I just note that saying that Ukraine is making a deal on the selling of its rare earth minerals couldn't be more false. that
Right.
that is sort of the ultimate expression of a protection racket, where they are, essentially they have a gun to their head, and you either want us to continue to give you support, or and you give us half of your minerals, or we're going to abandon you and let you die. I mean,
Right.
this is the most appalling expression of this kind of hostility, mafia style hostility toward somebody who should be, I mean, a country and a people that should be clearly our democratic ally, and it shouldn't be any question. This is unprecedented. I think it really can be said that way. And look, all of this is of a piece. And I'm I tend not to think like you're either on our side or you're against us. It's either one side or the other side. It's black and it's white. But boy, we're living in this moment where it's never been more black and white. Either you support democracy and the survival of the values and principles that's defined this country, or you don't. And silence is part of how you don't.
Right.
Kowtowing by media figures to Trump is how you don't. And
Right.
and so I think we need to look hard, person by person, and can I say everybody who's on this call, you speaking out in whatever way you can, with your friends and your neighbors and on social media, and sending letters to your, and making calls to your representatives. All
Right.
of those things are part of what, as Marina, who's one of the listeners, says, silence is complicity. And I think that's in this, that's always true. Boy, is it true now.
Yeah, I mean that we're in a really scary time. I mean, our democracy is in the process of being overthrown if we don't stop these people. But I mean, but on the plus side, Stephen, it is a time of great moral clarity,
Yeah,
and it's and in through most of my life, it's been like I was in journalism for my career, and and Republicans and Democrats, some good, some bad, and it was very confusing, and the
yeah,
good guys and the bad guys weren't always that clear.
yeah.
The good guys and the bad guys are really clear now. I mean, really clear, and
Really clear.
and so we got to act accordingly. And another thing is, and I totally agree with you, people need to be on social media, they need to be talking to their family and friends, they need to be calling their members of Congress, they also need to support good media, and there is some of that. I mean,
Yeah,
there's Guardian US is doing good reports, the
it
New
is.
Republic is doing a good job,
Yeah,
ProPublica is doing a terrific job. They can all use
absolutely.
your supports. And AP, I mean, I've criticized AP some, but they're really doing a fairly solid job at
Yeah,
reporting news. And,
yeah. And we
under
do need that good basic news reporting. We do. I mean,
right,
it augments surely what we do. There's no question. We'd all be poor without it. So I'm and this is this complicated conversation about the Washington Post. Which is, I know a lot of people have made a decision to end their subscriptions and abandon it. I'm of two minds of that, because I think there are still many good reporters who are doing very important work, and so I don't think there's a clear decision on that.
no, I'm struggling with it too, and I haven't done it yet, but I may very well. But you can also boycott like Amazon and Whole Foods and other Bezos kind of industries.
And I think that's, look, I do think that's where we're going. I mean, there's a conversation about, are we in a constitutional crisis now? Will it be when the Trump regime refuses to follow court orders, court rulings, that's going to be the thing that activates it? But I think we're looking toward national responses from the public. Whether
Right.
that's national strikes, or whether it's ultimately some other kind of public demonstrations. I think we're at a point where we're not far from that, and I think there's a rising anger which we've seen at the town halls. I think people are angry and they're frustrated, and they know that something is wrong. And look, that's part of the responsibility of all of us to speak out, so that not only that you communicate that something is wrong, things surely need to be fixed, but also to sort of say, like, together we actually have the ability to respond, to push back in a way that can make a difference.
Yeah, and we do. It's not, it's not really, it's not a time to just give up and, retreat to your couch, and, watch old movies. Do that. Stay
Do that
mentally
too.
healthy. Stay mentally healthy. Enjoy life, but fight, fight,
Yeah.
fight, fight, fight. I mean, it is a time now. I mean, we can still save our country, but we can't do it from the couch.
Yeah. So look, Mark, I think we've covered what we had in mind. I hope there was some value for everyone's listening. I awfully appreciate how much people have participated with their thoughts, and I'm really looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone.